this referendum is the first comedy of this government, because they are treating everybody as children, and they have taken off the idea we are going to have a referendum. They treat it like a general election. Now, why am I saying this? General election, you get votes if you run down the other party. The referendum means it's very important decision of a country. It's not the decision for the people alone, because this government or the people who live here don't own this country. 400 to even 1,000 years, people have fought for this country and made it the Great Britain. Now what they are doing is make it into a general election where they are talk about economics, talk about jobs, they are talking about properties and houses and bedsets. What that got to do with the referendum? Referendum is about sovereignty. Now, neither the current Prime Minister or the previous Prime Minister or the future Prime Minister have got no right whatsoever to sell this country to EU. Because we are a sovereign country. We have a flag, we have got an army, and we have got our own rule of law. Why do you think these comedians, the Prime Ministers and Ministers, think they can sell that? But how do they have the right to sell a country? It doesn't belong to them. It belongs to the history of the people. I'll make it simple for people. What is the precedence in anywhere in the world have got the Prime Ministers and Ministers to sell a country to some other authority who is going to rule over us? That's one. Second thing is, they are talking about is important to have a job, important to have a property, important to have houses, right? Syria was a very powerful country. He had very rich oil reserves, and they had a high standard of living. They had houses, palaces, hotels, parks, hospitals. Now they are refugees. Why? Because they don't have a country. Or no such thing as losing a sovereignty of a country. Because sovereignty doesn't belong to any one of us.
Doesn't it mean that it belongs to the Queen?
Our Queen earned it to be part of the sovereignty, because when there's a war, she sent her own children to the forefront of the fight. When the war was on, she was there when she was not a queen. She was there in the thick of the war. She earned her right. But how many of the ex-prime ministers we can say, they sent their children to the war? Now why does anybody in the right mind wanted to get these soldiers under EU control? And it's like giving a stupid person a machine gun, load it. I don't want to see any government giving our army to somebody else's control. Because this is our birthright. This is the country's birthright. It is the birthright of the unborn children of our country. Now, nobody has got the right to sell unborn children's right. Just because they think they sold a car company to Germany, shipping companies to South Korea, electric company to somebody, telephone company to somebody, they think they can sell the country.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would you say to the argument that before we were part of the European Union, our human rights weren't entrenched, and now that we've become part of the European Union, we have the European Convention of Human Rights, and we also have the route of the European courts to remedy our rights. Do you think we'll lose our human rights if we leave the EU?
Can I give you an example of it?
Yeah.
This is a red herring, because between Andrew Neil and Hillary Benn interview, Hillary Benn admitted in public, on the television, on BBC, that England has got a better holiday rights for the staff. There are entrenched customs here, it's not written. Their culture about people is not written. It's entrenched in our system and our hearts and minds of the people. You can't do anything you like just because one employee is there. There are laws there. When we do laws, we only do laws which says what you can't do. We are free people. We can tell them what you can't do and why. We don't do laws to say what you have to do. The EU laws are based on a system what you have got to do. We are not slaves. If the rights of the people are protected in EU, there are 26 countries, why do people from EU are coming here? The first thing they do, they come to Germany, get a German passport, come to England. First thing they come is England. Why is that?
What about the argument that if we leave the EU, our free movement of people, workers, goods, that will be destroyed?
Now, if I ask you, would you go back to 15th century and say the things that happened in the way 15th century is good, and would you like to go back to 15th century? Would you say, yes, I wouldn't mind?
No.
Right. What they are saying about our free movement to EU is going back to 15th century, where the lord of the manor will come back and say, you give your freedom, I'll protect you. And you agree, the next minute you know he owns you life and limb. What they are saying is, you are good to stay in the European Union, then you are governed by European Union. There are 26 countries. None of them have the same value as us. The majority of them are Catholics, and there are bloodshed to become Protestant because we didn't see the value of it. Now they are in majority, and there are 25% of the Muslims. A lot of people have spent a lot of life and limb and blood, sweat to have a Christian country of their choosing. Why do we want to join as EU and you wanted to control us? How are you going to get common grounds between Muslims and Orthodox Christians and Catholics and Protestants and atheists?
We have all of those in the UK though already.
We have all of them in the UK because we are a free country. But you try to tell an Albanian or Turkey and they will call you infidel. So we have got a culture to protect, and we are going to give it to Eastern Europe. And if you think how Hitler started this campaign, he came as a champion of the poor, oppressed Germans, to give them a pride of Germany. And then he goes and burn up his own office to blame the enemies and get rid of them. And he became a chancellor, he became a dictator. Now, Germany moved in, they said, we are here. England is the best ally we have. The whole idea of having European Union, two fundamentally two fundamental principles, they have got it wrong. One, our law says what we can't do because they are wrong. Their law says we have got to do it, not because they are wrong, because they are telling us to do. So they are telling us with the whip, or else. And then the people who are doing these things are called, same as France, secretariat. That means civil servants. They are not answerable to anybody, and this is a job for a life. So those two fundamental principles are not addressed by anybody.